giant bullshit is the most listened to podcast in the country.
What's good, young blood?
Cut that. For your own good. Nothing much, OG.
Welcome back to all the fanatic extremists who listen to our show.
Yep. I just want to give a big welcome back to all of the schizophrenic crazies out there.
Yeah, welcome back to all those guys. My name's Grattan Conwell.
Matthew Fields.
We do a podcast.
And the lights are on.
And the lights are on.
That's not what it's called. It's called Monster BS.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
So yeah, this is the last episode of season 1.
The last episode ever of season 1.
Yep. And actually, I wanted to tell you guys, we're coming up on 6 years. Making
crazy.
This the longest singular season of anything ever created. So
yeah,
pat ourselves on the back for that. We made it to number 7 on some podcast list.
it's a holy number.
We're winning. Getting close to taking out all the ops.
Getting close to taking out all the ops. That's big stuff here.
Just wanted to update everyone. We are on the verge of taking out all the ops. So this is big stuff here. And let's hope we get it done soon. Appreciate you.
Yeah. Would you be mad if you looked at the footage and I kept looking at the camera like I saw something?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, we watched another movie from your favorite IP.
Yes.
Ultraman.
Ultraman's really like the, if I was doing drugs,
Yeah.
a little bit, it's like, if you're doing like casual stuff, then you saw somebody like zonked out on heroin.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, that guy's messed up. That's sort of how I feel. It's like, yeah, I'm into some seeing people who are into it, like into like the Power Ranger show.
Yeah.
Like into that. It's like, whoa, okay. Couldn't be me.
Yeah. So monster movies are like the casual.
Yeah, I
drug
guess.
to you,
Yeah, it's
Ultraman
like a nice. Yeah, it's just like a little bit of
fans.
coke.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
just like a little bit every now and then.
Party drug.
Yeah, it's like a party drug
Yeah.
for me. I just do it to have a good time.
So, I don't know how you'll feel about this because I know you're not that crazy about Ultraman, but I sort of took the liberty of loading up the original Ultraman theme song
Okay.
from the original Ultraman show.
All right.
And this is just sort of for all of our fans. I think they're going to like hearing this. So let's just hear a little clip of that.
Okay.
Do you mind?
Let's hear it.
All right.
Yeah, not living enough. This blunt, I'm taking a puff. I'm starting to feel like it's us. No trust, so do as you must. For real, don't know when I stay out of town. I get dough when I stay out of town. 500 shops, I got 500 rounds. 500 plots, I got 500 pounds. Yeah, I'm trusting none, I'm told. Honestly, I'm trusting half what I'm shown. I don't pop out, but it's each to their own. She hate when I be on my phone.
So that was just the intro to the original Ultraman. I know you guys were probably singing along at home. Everybody knows that one.
It sounded kind of familiar. That guy kind of had like bars. What the fuck was that?
That was the original Ultraman song. I don't know what you're talking about. She
forgot.
hated when I be on my phone. Come on. It's not some shitty rapper rapping at 123 beats per minute. That's just the Ultraman theme song as it was presented in Japanese.
Okay, yeah, it must be a Japanese thing.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't know about it.
So that's sort of the song for the beginning. And then we have another secret kind of special celebratory song at the end.
Okay.
And if you're watching along on YouTube, there might just be a visual component to this next musical number, but you'll have to stick around for the end of the review for that.
Ding.
And begin.
Yeah. All right.
Ultraman Rising.
Yeah. This movie was for little kids and not for grown-ups like me.
Yeah.
That being said,
I will give it a 7 out of 10 because I think it has a little bit of something for everybody.
That's so funny. It's like, I know this is just meant for children and not for grown-ups. However, after some careful consideration, I've decided to give it an okay review. You should go see this if you want to go see a good movie.
You should.
Yeah.
So, Ultraman Rising. This was one that I think I heard something about a while ago, and then it sort of showed up.
Yeah, that's how Netflix releases go a lot of the time. I think there's some like Linklater movie that I don't think I'm gonna watch. That came out. I think it was like that. I think it's just called Hitman.
Yeah.
With that kind of weird looking handsome man in it.
Stinklater. How about that?
Yeah, sure. But I remember hearing about that. It's like, oh yeah, Linklater's gonna start doing like, he's gonna release a movie like through Netflix or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay. And then like one day it was like, it's been out.
Yeah.
Is what I heard. It's like, oh, okay. And it's just like, yeah, that's number 9 on Netflix.
People like
okay.
him and like David Fincher and Scorsese not so much, but Noah Baumbach. It's sort of becoming the Las Vegas residency of filmmakers.
I hope not. I hope they can start doing
real movies again.
Yeah, I mean, none of it's been terrible. I think the Linklater one that came out was like, I thought the marketing for it was really, it doesn't matter.
Ultraman Rising.
Yeah, so this showed up. I wouldn't know about it if it wasn't for you. There's other Ultraman junk on Netflix that's
Yes.
original content.
Yes.
There's like a show I saw
yeah,
when
it's
you're
a
scrolling
Netflix
through.
exclusive like show
That has nothing to do with this.
No.
No. Okay.
No. I've heard things. I don't even remember if they're positive. It looks like shit. Every fucking anime show that they put out, Singular Point, which is one of their Godzillas that they did an anime for, looks okay. Like
Yeah.
it looks like I could believe it like aired on some network or something. All of the other ones look like shit to me. Like they look really fucking cheap and ugly to me.
Yeah. Any 3D animated like show that I've like ever seen on anything on streaming, it's like it's a 3D animated, series. It's like, okay, I'm never gonna.
For some
watch
reason,
that. I don't know.
they really like doing giant monster ones. They've got Ultraman. They did a Kong Skull Island show.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't even know.
Pacific Rim The Black. There's a Pacific Rim show that's been out for like years. Gamera. They did
I saw that.
the Gamera thing. And the trilogy of Godzilla anime movies. They all look the
remember
fucking
those.
same to me. They look
Yeah.
really, really ugly.
Yeah.
And I just don't like that style. I guess slightly off topic. This doesn't look like that. This looks pretty
this
solidly
looks
different.
Yeah. Let's just get into it.
She hate when I be on my phone.
Yeah, so true. Ultraman, dude, she hates when he's on his phone. When he be on his phone. Yeah, this was okay.
I think so.
Yeah, it's weird. It I mean, it's like I said, it's like like I was joking a second ago, but yeah, it's for kids.
That's a good
so
observation.
It's like, so I don't know. It's like to get like really critical about it, but there's usually when people are like, well, Inside Out 2 isn't quite as good. It's like it's baby movies, less Pixar stuff and more like other like kid stuff that comes out that gets like criticized like seriously. It's like, come on. But some of this, the like issues I have with it are like with really like basic communication stuff, about like really like essential story elements that I thought were odd for, I mean, I thought this was like just some random animation studio, but you said it was like ILM's animation division might have worked on it.
Let me check this before
Yeah, do we want to fact check before we
I
put
don't
it out
know.
into the world?
In a nutshell, it's epic, amusing, and heartwarming. Did that help? You wanted to know who animated? It's actually uplifting. What do you?
Dude, nothing like an uplifting story.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yes, ILM.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't know why it just. I mean, it didn't look bad, but it was like this looks like
Not very expensive.
not especially for most of it. It doesn't.
I agree.
But knowing that it's that, and it's like, okay, that's. I mean, I know ILM isn't like known for their animation necessarily, like in this capacity,
Right.
but that's pretty high profile. I feel like like you're getting. I mean, you're not Pixar or anything, but you're close to the cream of the crop.
Yeah.
I mean, you're lower on a tier. It's I guess it'd go like Pixar, DreamWorks.
It's sort of like if Gucci made a pair of shoes.
Yeah, a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But
It's like you aren't exactly the shoe guys.
I think they probably make shoes. They definitely make shoes.
Silence.
Okay.
My point stands.
That'd be cool if you sent me flying at the walls. Yeah. Oh.
Anyway, you know what I mean.
But yeah, it's like this isn't what you usually do. But yeah, but knowing that some of the like really basic like story stuff that I feel like was weaker. Like you had to kind of explain some things to me, and that's partially because I was talking over parts of it.
Yeah, I forgot to say, I watched this twice. This is my second time watching it. This is your first time watching it.
And there are a couple things that I just like missed because I wasn't paying full attention to at some points. But also there's some stuff where it's like I never would have gotten that. There's like when it starts out at the beginning and you get like this whole cutesy family scene, and then his dad goes off and has to fight. And I don't know. I didn't get the vibe that was all that important.
Yeah.
Like at all.
Yeah.
And then you're like, no, and then you're having to tell me like, oh, this is like the same guy you just saw. Like when he like calls him, like video calls him.
Yes, the dad looks
yeah.
completely different.
You had to tell me that was his dad. I was like, oh, okay. I thought there was like a new character.
He looks like the proportions of his body have completely changed. His head shape is changed.
Yeah.
Where his facial hair is growing from has changed. I mean, it's understandable that some of that would change.
But yeah, none of
there's
like
a
the
20-year
very basic
difference.
like character design stuff stays consistent.
None of it stays the same.
He has a mustache.
And his voice is also not distinct enough to where you would immediately be able to place him.
Yeah.
It's like, what? And also the antagonist of the movie shows up in that beginning scene. He like calls them, and you see him briefly. So I'm not crazy about the way that this movie looks a lot of the time. Really, mainly character designs are really ugly to me. And I guess I kind of appreciate that it's not the usual like run of the mill like Disney style.
Yeah, they're not just biting that. It's
or,
distinct. Like everybody has like really
illumination.
broad shoulders a lot of the time. They have like these, just like really exaggerated.
The stuff they're doing with hair is a little unique. My main problem with this movie is that it feels really just sort of generic. It feels like a lot of other animated movies. The ones that come to mind for me are How to Train Your Dragon and Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, which are just, you can boil them down to the same thing. It's like a kid who has something special, who has a strained relationship with his father.
Yeah.
You can, especially, they do the same thing in How to Train Your Dragon. I haven't seen all of those movies, but from what I understand, they find out that his mom has been living on an island of dragons.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And it's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, plus also, just befriending a monster, when you're supposed to fight them. It's like, it seems a lot like How to Train Your Dragon. And I'm not really here to talk about other animated movies, but the problems with this movie is like I feel like I've seen all of it before. All of it. And the dialogue is really, really generic, you know.
Yeah, it's very, the script
Taught
is
me
really
how to
not-
be who I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, when they start out with like, you know, like some people think being a hero is this, but
Very,
it's actually, you know,
very
it's just like-
Spider-Verse.
yeah, that's another
Really
thing
trying to be-
is some of the design philosophy seems to be kind of biting the Spider-Verse, like, you know, hand-drawn-ish.
The Spider-Verse
No.
movies, I think, are kind of like a virus that has spread throughout the animation
Yeah,
world.
yeah, for sure.
That Puss in Boots movie looked a lot like
Did it?
Spider. Yes, yeah, it looked a
I
lot
didn't
like
see
that. That new animated Ninja Turtles movie looked very,
Yeah.
very similar, and they're not really trying to hide it. This isn't too egregious, like I said when we were watching it, but it is obviously.
Yeah, there's
influenced
some.
to a
Yeah,
certain
you see like
degree.
shadows that have like hand-drawn lines.
Yeah, when he's like he hits some power lines at some point, and they draw like little electricity things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a strange choice for this. I feel like, you know, because that it's like emulating like the whatever like comic book stuff and like bringing, you know, like really bringing it to life.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, you're right.
But to do that to Ultraman is a little strange to me. But then at the same time, some of the stuff they do with it that is like the strength of that style. That's like very like just like really expressive and like, you know, you can just sort of bend the rules of the space you're in. That make it like really. You can just like put a ton of energy into an image.
yeah,
You know, especially in like a fight or something. And that finally shows up at like the very end when they're like, you know, like everybody's kind of like getting warped
yeah.
whenever they're like pulling and throwing punches. And that looks really great. And like when people get angry a couple times, they like do like that tie-dye, whatever ink thing.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
like very associated with Ultraman. That,
Yeah.
From like the little title
Opening,
that they would show.
yeah.
Yeah, and they'd like do that, and it's like cool. You know, I wish that had, you know, you could have been doing that throughout the movie. You could have been that expressive with your other stuff, because and you were talking about it a little bit, and I really agree. Especially any scene with that journalist
Yes.
character that he's like kind of sort of seems to be an interest. Those scenes are really flat,
Yeah.
like noticeably.
They're always in like relatively small rooms with like minimal set decoration.
Yeah, it gets a little ridiculous.
There's 2 times they're in restaurants, or I think maybe one of them's supposed to be like his house or something.
I
I don't know,
think,
but
yeah.
it looks like a restaurant, like a little
they're
room in
eating.
a restaurant.
Yeah, that first he's got
And there's-
sunglasses on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's just there's like nothing on the walls, and they're doing shot, reverse shot, and then I think they have a wide, you know, that shows both of them.
Yeah.
But it's just shot, reverse shot, where, you know, rule of thirds, very like basic
And it's
meat
like the
and
same.
potatoes.
They're not moving
composition.
around, you know. And it's. I think part of that's down to like what can you do with this script beyond like
How can they have this conversation walking through a park? Because
Yeah, something.
the stuff that they do of Tokyo, like there's certain things. Real quick before I forget, there's like a shot I think right after the baby kaiju comes home with him, like the first night he's trying to like ignore it, and he's like in his living room and he's like reclined on a couch, and it's really wide shot, and you can see out through all of these windows that are like surrounding his house, and then like there's some lightning in some clouds off in the distance. One of my favorite shots in the movie. It looks like a drawing, like it looks like concept art.
yeah.
But they do a lot of great stuff where you can see really dynamic, interesting stuff through windows. Particularly with the city, it always feels alive. It never feels like dead or like hollow, which I feel like a lot of, you know, animated city stuff feels like that.
Yeah.
Would it be impossible to set them in front of a window?
Yeah,
Could we
it's-
see
they
some
might
people
be in
walking
front of a
by?
window at that part, but like it's just
They
there's
are, but
nothing
yeah,
going
it's like
on.
clouds and
yeah,
stuff.
and behind
maybe a
them
bridge.
for most of it, like, you know, the angle we have them, there's just like a wall behind
Yeah,
her.
the 2 major angles that we cut back and forth to, it's like I don't know how long that scene is, 3 minutes or something,
Yeah.
if not more. and we're getting these really, really plain shots, and they're not doing it. You know, part of what makes animation great is that you can be expressive with like tiny, tiny things.
Yeah.
In ways that real life can't be. And they're doing a little bit. He's like pouring sauce on some noodles, and it's like none of it is. I kept asking, you know, I was like, why is this animated during that scene? It's like, what is the point of doing this as an animation if you're just going to show two people in a plain room talking, cutting back and forth?
Yeah.
And that happens a few times with them. And, you know, the problem with those is, you know, when the main guy, when Ultraman is interacting with the baby kaiju, Emmy.
I don't remember. I just think of it as the baby.
There's a lot of like, that's another thing. They wait until like halfway through the movie to name it.
That's
the dad
true. Yeah, the
names it.
dad. Yeah,
I really don't
names
like
it
that.
after his mom.
That seems really like he should be naming it after his mom, not his dad. Anyway, when Ultraman is interacting with Emmy, there's a lot of physical interaction, which they are pretty good about, you know, expression and like sound. You know, they make that fun to watch. But when he's talking to this lady, they're not doing anything physical. Like, they're not moving. It's just dialogue.
Yeah.
And so we're basically, you know, watching words on a page scroll when we're getting that really basic stuff. And
and what's in those scenes is basically exposition usually, or like kind of stuff we already know, and like we're just sort of setting up her for some reason, which she really doesn't go much of anywhere other than like sort of making him like realize he has to step up and like raise a, you know, a child of sorts. But besides that, I don't feel like she really goes anywhere. Their relationship doesn't make anything.
Think the closest I come away with, because I listened to Elijah's podcast, they discussed this too. The closest I could come away with thinking of it, you know, is that she has her own story that's kind of mirroring his. And they're not necessarily supposed to, like, she's not supposed to be some big important person in his story. It's like they're two separate stories happening that kind of intersect. Like, I think she's becoming a more successful journalist as he's learning how to juggle all this bullshit.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
It's like so it's like it's strange that it's like we get these scenes that don't really go anywhere. Like, but I thought they were gonna kind of be like, you know, like, oh, and would you like to go out, you know, or something, you know, like maybe we could, you know, but that never really happened, which isn't bad. It's just not. It doesn't end up anywhere. And it's strange. She doesn't take up like a ton of time,
right?
But it's odd to devote the amount of time they did to her. But so there's like that first scene, it's really flat, and then they go to like a restaurant together.
Yes.
And that's really flat. That's like a beige wall. It's supposed to be like a small restaurant.
Yeah, and there's rows of like shelves and coat hangers, and there's nothing on the shelves and there's nothing on the coat hangers.
Yeah.
That stood out as being really weird to me.
Yeah, it was just really empty, like noticeably empty.
And it's like, I understand that they're supposed to be like isolated. You know, they're the only ones in there, but it's too empty.
It
feels
It
dead.
is. Yeah, it's and then at the very end they have a scene together where they're like interviewing and they're just in front of a beige brick wall.
Yeah, with like
and
a
there's
potted
like a
plant.
Yeah, and it's like
they cut to like a wide of that, and it's like dead center in the middle of the room, just eye level, flat, symmetrical composition. Ugly, or not ugly, but just plain room.
Just really
like
plain.
It looks like it took fucking 10 minutes to put together in Blender with assets you already had.
And it's like that's a weird thing about it is like I'm not exactly sure if he's like on TV or something. I get because they sort of have it set up like a TV like interview, like 60 minutes ish thing where you sit down with somebody. But I don't know. It kind of looks like that's not. It's a little bit strange, and like the flatness of the composition doesn't like bring anything out in like the like what they're saying to each other,
right?
Like, you know, and it isn't like a breather from like the rest of the movie being really active, you know, and like really eye popping because you would need that.
Yeah.
But the rest of the movie isn't particularly like stylistic and busy.
It only happens in short bursts.
Yeah, and it's like really kind of tantalizing. It's like, oh, that was cool.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just like little shots they do. Like, you know, Ultraman will like, you know, bring back his arm to hit something, and they'll change the focal length
Yeah.
of this little virtual camera and like move in on
They'll
him
like
and,
replace the
yeah.
background with like these
Yeah, these,
really
like,
crazy,
swirling
vibrant colors.
And it's like, wow, that's really pretty and cool. And like, it was suddenly it was this movie that I was watching, like, you know, like I was behind myself watching. Not that dramatic, but like, you know, I just was not very engaged with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then like suddenly that would happen. It was like, whoa, you know. And they did like a ton in this like final fight
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
they do with like a bunch of the different characters. It's like, where's this been the whole time? And I mean, to use that, I wish they would have used that as a tool to like, you know, sort of supplement the story they were trying to tell.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing. This story is like made out of really like disparate elements
Mm-hmm.
that don't really come together for me, and it takes like a while to get them to sort of draw together. They fight that monster in the very first scene,
Mm-hmm.
and then they have like this dad, right? And he's absent, but you don't really see. You actually, how you get introduced to him is he's being very loving and involved in his son's life.
Mm-hmm.
Is the first time you see him, and then like after that, off camera, his mom leaves, and his dad becomes this person that's
Yeah.
apparently unloving and neglectful.
But everything we see, the only parts of the story we see are the dad being like a very present
Yeah,
and caring person.
and his
like
mom being there as well,
Yeah.
and no mention of her. I guess she's a kaiju expert of some kind.
Maybe.
Yeah, 'cause she goes off to find this island that no one can find.
Mm-hmm.
And that you had to tell
And they
me
just
that.
assume she dies.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, we can't find her, so she's got to be dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, the in-universe world, which for the most part we get the things that we need, you know, because it's about him and it's about this baby monster and baseball or whatever.
Yeah.
But there's things like the antagonist really doesn't get the relationship between the main guy's family and the bad guy feels like it should be there, because the bad guy calls them, like he personally calls
Yeah.
the main guy's dad in the beginning,
Yeah, and
and he's like, there's a kaiju attack, my family and your family are in danger.
yeah.
And then he turns into Ultraman, and then at the end of the movie the bad guy still doesn't know that the dad is Ultraman.
Yeah, and like I guess I'm supposed to interpret, now I'm thinking it's like, okay, did like the dad like save his family instead of that guy's? You know, I don't know. There's like
It
a lot up
definitely
in the
seems-
air.
They have like a flashback where like right when the main guy's like almost gonna drown,
Yeah.
they have like a flashback of like a monster like almost getting him, and then the dad as Ultraman stops them, or stops the monster and saves them. And I don't know if we're supposed to be interpreting that as like the same time or around the same time that the bad guy's family died.
Yeah. And it's like, is that night of particular importance? Is like, it seems like as the movie goes on, it's like, oh yeah, that was actually like kind of important.
Yeah, it
seems like,
seems like that all happened in one night. To
and
me.
I'm not sure if it did.
Maybe I'm wrong, because the bad guy calls them and he's like in uniform and he's like, you know, my family and your family are in danger. But when he's watching that tape or the video of his family, he's like recording in the video right before the kaiju attack.
Yeah.
He's like, come to dad, you know, so he's not at work. So
Yeah.
maybe that's happening like,
Like,
but it's
separate
all set in the
activities,
same
yeah.
place. You can see out the window that the apartments are like
Yeah.
right next to each other. Like they have the same view of this
Mhm.
bridge, and you know, it would make sense story-wise to have it all happen on one night and then like reveal certain things as the movie goes on. But the way it feels is just like certain elements come together and it's not like no importance is given to that. It's just sort of like,
Yeah.
you know, this is what we're showing you right now. It's not like
Oh, this is part of that.
Yeah, while I was living my comfy life, this guy was losing his family. That's why we're at odds. It's like that never happens. He's just like, this guy's in a big fucking robot.
They don't even know who that guy is. They like never talk to that guy. They never go like, why are you doing this?
Yeah, the dad seems to know. He's like, this guy is dead set on saving this kaiju. Something's wrong.
Yeah.
But they don't really know that he's like, or I don't get the vibe that they know that he is in the robot or the spaceship, like leading this assault. Maybe
dies.
they do. I don't.
That was a little bit like, oh, like he just blows himself up, like believing like something. I don't know. Like he never like has a moment where he's like, I guess it would just be another cliche, but it's like, he never has a moment where he's like, oh, I see. My heart was too hardened by these things that happen. No, he's just like, I'm gonna kill myself.
Yeah, and that's where his story ends.
It's like
he's like miserable.
Yeah, he's like, he's just like full of hate, I guess. I don't know.
And he's just sad, He's like,
I lost my family. I'm gonna kill myself.
Yeah, and then he's looking at Ultraman.
Yeah,
and he's like, I guess this guy's not gonna let me kill everybody else. So this isn't even, I'm just killing myself.
And the vibe I get is that the guy's Ultraman is just like, he like walked away from it. It's like, that guy was crazy.
Right. Yeah.
Like that's
they
the
didn't
impression.
Have any.
Yeah. There's no like, oh no. Like they don't know who that is. Like it's just, and that's what I mean. It's like all these disconnected things, and like the dad and this whole like baseball thing. Like he's not playing well for the team. He's like a hot shot. Sorry, he's like a hot shot, like all-star player from America, and he's come over here partially because of his dad, and he's going to play in like the Japanese, circuit. And it's like a big deal, but he's not living up to expectations. It's a good idea.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel like that has much to do with anything else in the story besides the fact that like taking care of that baby monster like makes him tired and is. But I mean, even before he was like doing like but even before he was taking care of it, he was already like kind of messing up playing. Like he was like he almost struck out in that first game.
Yeah, because his shoulder was hurt.
Yeah, and it just doesn't feel like they. I mean, yeah, they intersect because it's the same character. But it doesn't feel like the solution to both problems is the same thing. He's just like, I'm really stressed out.
So what do you think, as sort of a thought experiment, what do you think this movie is about in like one sentence?
That's actually really tough. That's a good way to get through to what I was trying to say. Because I can't. It's like, it's about stepping up to the plate. That's the best thing I can do because that gets baseball and like becoming a parent.
Yeah.
I guess it's like it's like, I guess, sort of trying to take care of your responsibilities.
Yeah. If I had to say, I would say it's about finding the balance of your home and work life.
Yeah, that's a fair answer too.
Which isn't a great thing for your kids' movie to be about, or your animated movie.
Yeah, it's like, listen, Dad, everything can't be about you, kid. Like, listen, Dad has to fucking work.
I guess, but also, I don't know. I guess there's something about like being the best version of yourself involves relinquishing some control of every part of you.
Yeah, but
I don't know. It's
like, it isn't about control though. You know what I mean? Like he's not like or about control for him. You know what I mean? Like it's he's just like kind of an asshole.
The
like,
main character.
But yeah, he's just like, whatever. He's like, he's got a big ego. But then the baby, it's like, it's not like he isn't controlling himself around that. It's just out of control on its own.
When he's not around, though,
Yeah,
it's
but
under control when he's around. I mean, I think because as the movie goes on, like he gets better at being ultra, or I guess he doesn't because he kind of just rages at the end.
yeah,
Or the self-sacrifice thing makes it a little hazy, but at the end he does seem to just sort of flip out and like, start tearing apart his enemy monsters and robots. But I think what they want us to come away thinking is like he's more focused by having gone through all of this as he learns that, or maybe it's about being part of a team. I don't fucking know. There's a lot of shit going on in this movie because it's like, not only is he Ultraman and plays baseball, but they introduce this like surrogate father kind of thing, which is like, I like generally because this movie, what's special about it is that it is one of the first like big pushes to bring Ultraman to the Western world. Because it's been pretty solidly just a Japanese thing. And I like that they're bringing it over and they're not trying to directly translate it. They're not trying to do like, here's a copy of a first episode or whatever.
This is Jack, and he lives in New York, and he is Ultraman.
Well, I mean, I'm glad that they're not literally like he's from the planet of light, and this is the Council of Ultras, and this is the monster that he fights, and here is something that is exactly like this episode.
Yeah. That lore it stresses me out. I'm not gonna lie.
I think it's part of because it's been built up over such a long time. It's become convoluted, and I think it kind of repels newcomers a little bit. But I like the idea that it's like we're keeping certain things. We're keeping, he still looks like Ultraman. He's still Japanese. He's in Japan. But he's like our new character, and he's a baseball player, and we're going to give him this kaiju, because just right off the bat, the idea of Ultraman, who is a big silver guy that beats the shit out of monsters, suddenly he has to care for a baby monster is like, that seems like a really good starting point.
Yeah.
For a new Ultraman idea, and I like that. But with the baseball thing and the father thing, it's like it gets a little confused.
I think it definitely does. I think they're all great starting points. I think it's like a great place to start out from with everything, including the baseball thing. It's like, okay, cool. This is like, he's a public figure.
Yeah.
And he has to like balance that and being, whatever, basically a superhero.
Yeah.
The thing with his dad's okay. As a central thing, it doesn't get solved really. His dad's just like, I'm sorry.
And also, we spend most of the movie just hearing about it.
Because
he's, like we said earlier, what's supposed to be at the heart of this movie is that the main guy has a really rocky relationship with his dad because his dad chose to stay in Japan as Ultraman instead of going to the U.S. to watch him play baseball.
I think.
And that is why he hates his dad, or like that's why they have a really strained relationship.
Yeah.
But all of that happens off screen. We only see him interacting with his dad, and then soon after we find out that he's just been a loving father. He's been like trying to keep in touch with him. He obviously loves his mom.
Yeah.
And he's like been keeping track like thoroughly of his son's baseball career. And so there's no point where I'm like on Ultraman's side.
No, yeah.
In regards to that. Like I just don't see where he's coming from. It's like your dad seems okay. Like the monster breaks its arm, or he breaks the monster's arm, and he calls his dad. And his dad immediately shows up and makes everything better.
Yeah.
And it's like, and then after that, he's like, look, Dad, this doesn't mean we're okay with each other.
Yeah.
And it's like, this just feels like you're trying to repeat a beat that you saw in another kid's movie, but you're applying it to the movie that you wrote, where that doesn't make any sense.
No, yeah. I'm really not sure. And also, it's all like convoluted. beyond it happening off screen, it's like also convoluted. It's like, yeah, well, he was, and then he had to stay, in America, and then he did this, and then and I thought it was like a thing of like, oh, he likes being Ultraman more than he likes being a dad. But once again, opening scene is like him being loving, and
Turns out to not be true. Being Ultraman means virtually nothing to the dad.
yeah, he
He
doesn't
just
really
did it because
seem-
he had to, I guess.
I guess I don't really know.
He never
Yeah.
said, like, in the beginning, we get this thing where he's like, Ultraman is like kind of a responsibility. It's not just this cool thing. It's like, you're going to have to do this. You're going to have to do things when
Yeah.
you get older. And yeah, being Ultraman doesn't really factor into the father's character. He's just sort of around, and he's like all around like a likable person,
Yeah.
attentive. I mean, maybe he's preoccupied with being Ultraman.
But you never see that negatively impacting something. It's not like, oh, I got to go, or you need to go be Ultraman right now. Give up on this thing you're doing right now. No, that never happens.
Yeah, he never
It's-
asks his son to give up on anything.
I mean, I think off screen he was like, listen, I know you're making millions and millions of dollars playing baseball in America, but do you think you could come be Ultraman and make millions and millions of dollars playing baseball in Japan?
Right, it's
That's
like a
the biggest-
compromise.
yeah.
Because people's lives are at risk,
Yeah.
which doesn't seem like a crazy thing. Maybe we're going on too long about the fucking
Maybe
dad
it's
thing,
but it's part of like the bigger problem, which is just like all these really jumbled story elements that don't really coalesce into anything. And I think they're like, for starting points, they all kind of get at similar themes about responsibility, about
managing
becoming
expectations.
becoming part, like I said, part of a team, like you said.
Yeah,
Maybe, but it's
Which is interesting because, like, if you wanted to go that angle, like Ultraman, basically the entire history of Ultraman as a franchise is it's about a team of people, and one of them is Ultraman.
yeah, and Ultraman is usually the one who solves
Right.
the problem.
So that would be a nice, especially sort of with the cultural background that the world now has of like superhero movies are just part of cinema language now.
Yeah,
Like all this, like, being responsible,
yeah,
having to do what's right, balancing being something larger than life with a personal life is
Yeah.
like, we've seen that done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We've seen it done a million times. So I feel like with that background, you could subvert some things by
for
like
sure.
by like making him part of a team of like just normal people.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I'm saying I wish this was more like the original Ultraman. That really doesn't bother me. But with the becoming a part of a team thing, it seems like a weird way to go if they were really trying to get at that.
Yeah,
And I'm really not even sure that's what, maybe more than anything, it's just like take advice from other people.
maybe.
Not
I
even
don't
really
know.
work
Yeah.
with them, but just let them.
I just don't know what to focus
guide
on.
you.
Really, is what it is. It's like, I guess the baby is the biggest
Yes.
thing, because it takes up the most time. But I don't know.
But I don't know what the baby teaches him about being a better baseball player or about being a better Ultraman. Maybe compassion? But he wasn't exactly lacking in compassion in the beginning.
No, he was being pretty nice. He he was like trying to go easy on that thing.
Yeah.
And his flaw in that part is that, that's what the old lady says, at least, is that like, oh, he's being a show off.
Right, he's arrogant.
And so the beat there, I felt like, and maybe it's just because I've been primed with this basic plot so many times, it's like, oh, the hot shot show off. He's just doing it for himself, and what he needs to do is become part of a team,
Right.
but that doesn't happen, except like he like sort of teams up with his dad and like two monsters to beat something up, but it's not like and the triumph in the end is his, because he like
Yeah.
uses that force field. It's just strange. I don't know. It leaves me feeling like I just kind of watched like a bunch of stuff wash around
Yeah.
for a while. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world. It's just kind of like some cool ideas, and it went on for a while, and it's like I don't know what was I supposed to get here. I'm left a little like confused by it.
Yeah. The coach is another thing. Like,
Yeah.
they share very little dialogue, and then at the end, I don't know if you caught that, but she like
Yeah.
reads a quote from the coach.
Oh, does she?
Yeah, in that last interview, she's like, your coach said that you're one of the best players he's ever coached. So like the coach like came around to him off camera.
Oh, weird. Yeah, I know. He like smiles a little bit, like begrudgingly.
It just seems like a coach, sort of a father figure or like a mentor type figure, and for
Yeah.
that character to have virtually no, like, you know, it ends up working out. Him playing for the Giants ends up working out, which also earlier in the movie they said he was going to be traded to the Tigers.
I guess they canceled that.
They just decided not to, whatever. But playing for the Giants just ended up working out for him, and the coach really had nothing to do with that. Unless you want to say like maybe threatening him with being traded to another team sort of sparked some change, which
and he
it
like
didn't.
confronts him at the very beginning. He's like, "Listen, you need to be part of this team. See that right there? That you're gonna."
And Ultraman just
Yeah.
resists him. You know, he's just like, yeah, fuck that.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the movie, he's like, I'm actually,
Yeah.
this team thing ain't so bad.
Yeah. And his coach is like, whatever, and
but-
then
But that all
asterisk
happens,
smirks.
like, no, we don't see any of that through the baseball thing. It's just
No,
like
yeah.
that results sort of half-assed after the fact.
One thing, when they would shift to one of these different plots, whether it be like the antagonist with the IDF, I mean the KDF.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think you got it right. Though.
Yeah, I think I
that's the
did.
Israeli Defense Force.
Yeah, that's a missile attack now. What does he say? Whatever.
I think it's something like that. Missiles attack now. Or,
Yeah.
Here's a question. Would you trust the IDF to defend us from a kaiju attack?
They've got the firepower, dude. If anybody's got it, if the U.S. military is going to step up to the plate, next down the rung, I'd
We've got the Iron Dome.
got the Iron Dome. It ain't getting in. I'll tell you that. They would like cut to him, this antagonist guy, I guess, or to whenever they would switch to one of these different plots. The dad, that. I never really forgot the baby or anything, but everything besides that, they would cut to it, and it's like, oh yeah, I forgot that was going on.
Yeah, it's like so far in the background.
Yeah,
And the pacing is so uneven.
It's really strange. It's like stuff keeps like showing back up.
And it doesn't help that the movie actually is forgetting things every now and then.
Yeah.
Like being traded or like, there's that part in the beginning when those like drones, those like IDF drones are like, stand down, Ultraman, and then like they like get swatted out of the air, and he's like, oh, and that looks like it hurt or something.
Yeah.
And
I don't know who did that.
They never explain what happened.
Because they've got that
like,
monster under control.
like way far away.
Yeah,
like it's
and
not
then
even close to them.
I anticipate that Ultraman didn't smack those things out of the air.
But it kind of looked like he did.
Kind of. I
mean,
don't know.
Anyway, but the movie like forgets things every now and then. Like it forgets to show you stuff, it forgets to tell you stuff, or it doesn't do a good job of reminding you. So when these other things come back, it's like, oh, I thought there was a good chance that they like just ended that.
Mm-hmm.
Coming back to this fucking guy in his spaceship with all these people, it's like, oh shit, okay, so I guess the movie is committing
we're
to that.
Still okay. It's just it's just a strange feeling.
Mhm.
It feels really odd. I'm not. We talked a little bit about the animation. I'm not crazy about it. Although there's like moments where it's like really like, ooh, that's for somebody's real. That's real good.
Yeah.
But I noticed it in quieter moments. It's something, I don't know if it's like what they're doing with motion blur or like the lack thereof, but I see like a lot of 3D animated stuff that looks like this, and I'm like immediately like, ew. where people are just like moving around. It looks too crisp.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. There's something about it where it's like, yeah, I'm watching polygons move around in a computer grid. Is how I'm left feeling. I don't know why it stood out to me. I don't think it's particularly bad or anything, but it stood out to me whenever that journalist lady, she like gets out of a taxi, and like meets up with like her mom and her daughter.
Yeah.
And she like gets out of a taxi, and that's like noticeably like really just like too clean to me. And it just looks like I don't know why it looks cheap, but it looks cheap to me for some reason. Or like weightless.
Yeah, I agree that it definitely looks cheaper than like your average animated movie from like a big studio from like DreamWorks or Illumination or Pixar or whatever.
But I don't know. It feels weird to call this just like straight up cheap, because at the same time it's like, I don't know. It looks kind of nice. Like
Sometimes it does look cheap though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you had a bigger problem with like the motion than I did. The main thing that sticks out to me is characters. Like the longer that you look at a character's face and the closer the camera gets, the more I don't like it. Especially this main guy. Like the longer you look at him, it's like he starts looking like gross and almost realistic at some points. He's like,
yeah.
Like, I don't know, certain faces he makes, they look weird, and the eyes, like their irises look like, that makes them look like robots or something.
Yeah, they've got something in them.
And it's like a style thing. I guess they're trying to look like drawings or cartoons or something, like 2D
maybe.
cartoons.
Yeah.
And whatever they're doing is not working for me. Particularly like when he's riding around with that bike helmet on and his face is like
really
glowing
weird.
yellow.
And it's like low in the helmet too.
I really don't like the way my wife was watching a little bit of it with us, and she watched it with me the first time. But she was like, "He looks evil. He looks like the bad guy."
He does. He looks like a villain.
He does, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like
just very basic things.
It's like all the
about him.
sharp features that he's got, and it's like his hair is really sharp. His like the way they do his mouth is like really like. I get he's supposed to be like cocky, and I think that's part of it. Is like that's sort of what his design leans into, but he does look like mean.
Yeah,
at some points.
I think really simple stuff that like we kind of take for granted from studios like Pixar is just like they really understand those like fundamental things of like what makes a character nice to look at, and like really basic like what we need to tell the audience to fill them in on,
which is like insanely hard shit to like get good at. Like,
yes,
we should say that it's not like, come on, it's easy, just do it. Like Pixar and Dream, just do it.
Right.
Which is kind of how I feel when I watch movies that let me down a little. It's like, just do it. Like,
it is for me. It's like, well, obviously this isn't like just a really insanely cheap piece of shit. Like, you're putting enough money into it. It's like, go ahead and do the rest of the stuff if you're trying to get into that league with the rest of these movies. Like, if you don't want to be known as like a little straight to streaming piece of shit, be like a good movie.
Yeah.
Which, it is easier said than done.
Yeah.
But it all just sort of presents itself in a movie like this, where they're failing at really basic things. And broad strokes, it's okay. The acting's all right. The animation can look good. There's fun moments.
It's
interesting
cute.
ideas.
The baby's cute.
Entertaining. But it doesn't hold up to any kind of scrutiny. And I also don't, because they're trying to start a trilogy with this. This is supposed to be the start of a trilogy.
Yeah.
And it's not strong enough for me. It's
I wouldn't say.
Maybe they signed some contract and already agreed to do that.
Maybe, yeah.
But, if this came out in like the early 2000s, I don't think this would be strong enough to support a series like How to Train Your Dragon or Shrek or any of those great cartoons.
Netflix just pumps millions and millions of dollars into like whatever.
Yeah.
But it's paying off.
Presumably.
Yeah. Especially because you can't watch Matilda without paying extra.
Yeah.
That makes my blood boil.
That pissed me off so bad. I told my wife, I was like, we need to delete our Netflix after that. Like, I found out today that you have to pay for certain movies. Like, you have to unlock some other tier.
Yeah, I think y'all on an ads tier?
So, well, I told her we needed to cancel, and she's like, we get it for free.
Okay.
So I think it comes with our phone plan.
Yeah.
It's included with our phone plan, just whatever the most basic tier is. So we can't really cancel it like that. So it's like, whatever. I'll just as long as I'm not directly, they're not sucking $12 a month or whatever it is out of my bank account.
Yeah.
Specifically for this, it's like whatever.
Yeah.
But Netflix is fucking horrible.
True. But if they ever want to give us $12 million, maybe things can change.
We'll make you the best movie you've ever seen.
Maybe we can change things. Matilda, of all things, they know I want to watch it. You need to see Matilda. It's great.
I'll have to take your word for it.
It's a nice movie.
Ultraman Rising.
Yes.
More like Ultraman Falling. That's my cunty fucking Roger Ebert
raise an eyebrow.
review.
I thought this movie was terrible.
I thought the Asian lady was really pretty.
Yeah, he gets stuck on that.
Is that just me?
Yeah, I thought she was just gorgeous. I mean, just look at her.
She's beautiful.
She's beautiful, and I don't care that she has a kid. I don't even care. Well, Roger, what'd you think of the movie? You would ask that.
The what?
The what? Yeah. Die.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a bummer. So, a bummer to me that this was like such a sort of serious attempt at like doing this. It's like Ultraman's coming to the U.S. kind of.
Yeah.
But it's like very clearly they want like American little kids, North American little kids seeing this and being like, Ultraman's cool. That's a cool thing that I like now.
Mm-hmm.
And for it to just end up being a sort of run-of-the-mill animation thing that's like kind of derivative of just every other thing that's been around for kids is a little disappointing. What do you think about this in comparison to Shin Ultraman, which is the only other Ultraman thing you've watched?
It's interesting that you bring up, how like stock it is and everything compared to like other kids movies, and it just kind of copy and pastes a lot of beats from it. And then Shin Ultraman, so it's like this is sort of Ultraman with all the weird shit taken out of it. I mean, there's certain things like when he changes into Ultraman, they do that weird thing where they like bring him towards the camera.
Yeah.
And several, and he gets like really close to the lens. It's like a cool, really kinetic thing. But besides stuff like that, I like the title too that they do where they make a little. It's just
I
like
heard this is sort of a nerd fucking trivia thing, but I heard that Guillermo del Toro suggested that. I don't know
the
how,
goat,
but he was like, "You have to do this to make an Ultraman movie."
That guy's the goat. I love him.
He really fucking is.
He seems so cool. Everybody I talk to him about, like even my sister who like isn't into movies like quite like that. She likes movies a lot, but I'm like, I love Guillermo, and she's like, I love him. She's like, he's so cute. But I think everybody you can sense like that's a good guy.
Yeah,
it would devastate me if he was a sexual criminal. It would like actually fuck me out. I don't think he is at all. He seems so cool. I love him. Anyways, so like this being like a really run-of-the-mill collection of like animated kids movie beats. It's like everything odd about Ultraman mostly removed. To me. And Shin Ultraman is like, here's all the weird shit. It starts out like kind of normal. It's like, yeah, he just fights a monster, but there's just like this sort of uncanny way
Yeah.
that like Ultraman flies. They like lean into that, and they're like, "Yeah, it's really weird, huh?"
Mhm.
It's weird to the point where it's like, "Do you mean?"
Right, it's like
to...
cranked up to 11, kind
Yeah.
of all that weird shit.
And that's kind of what I feel like sets Ultraman apart. And from like a lot of stuff, it's just like it's this really weird. It's this thing left over, or not left over, but it's come all the way from the '60s to the present, and it's not. It doesn't. I mean, it kind of defines its genre in a lot of ways, but it's not something that I think a lot of like. People with like basic understanding of pop culture, the way that you can like look at Godzilla and be like, he destroys the city. There's scientists, some cars with lasers on them, and another monster or something, or a robot, and you can kind of like break it down into a little pop culture shorthand. And like Ultraman does not fit into anything. It's like, yeah, it's like weird Japanese guy like jumping around in really tight rubber.
And
It's
he's
like
silver.
Yeah, you can't say you can't like do a cutaway in like a kid's cartoon or something and say like, yeah, look, it's like a Japanese man,
Yeah.
like going like this,
Yeah.
with his arms, and nobody's gonna go like, they're doing, no, it's
Doing
that
one of those.
yeah, one of the no, it's like but So yeah, in comparison, they're sort of like polar opposites of like what you can do as like a spin on Ultraman. That's all I meant to say. It's like, the Shin Ultraman is like, okay, let's just bring all that weird shit into the current, and just to current pop culture.
Yeah.
And this is like, well, let's make him a superhero.
Yeah.
Which it is what he is. In the most basic element,
Kind of,
it
but
doesn't make no sense. They're not like forcing it into that, but
Right, but it's also a very, in my opinion, Western understanding of what it is to be a superhero.
yeah.
Because, I mean, I have not watched a lot of Ultraman, and I'm sure there are plenty of story arcs and movies that venture into the stresses that being Ultraman causes in his life. But what I've seen of the old Ultraman shows and stuff is it's usually he's sort of facing things with like a stone cold face, and he's just like, I'm Ultraman. I turn into Ultraman at the 23-minute mark, and at the 47-minute mark I am the regular guy again. And to me that's a very like Japanese sensibility of like, he does this thing. And it's a little weird, and that's how he does it. But
hello, I'm Ultraman.
Right.
And that's the end of the story.
Like he just does that, I'm
yeah.
transforming. And then for this, it's like, well, he has to be like stressed out about like balancing, the responsibilities of saving people while being his own person. To me, that's like a very, and it's pulling on like, I think Spider-Man movies, that's a big thing with them, and I don't think they're really shying away from that. But, particularly in the beginning when it's like the narration really reminds me of Into the Spider-Verse, where it's like, my story starts here.
I
being
that
a hero
stuff
is, well, it's a little cool.
That stuff makes my that really that activates my spidey senses. I mean, it's fine in the Spider-Verse movies. I've only seen the first one, but I don't remember minding it. But
they pull it off. Well, I think sincerity.
Yeah,
I
true.
think if you mean it, and if you actually have something to say, you can pull off virtually anything.
True.
And here, it's very much like, I just watched a really good movie.
Maybe
I
don't
want to
know.
make that movie.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to quite say that, but it does come off a little bit like that. And,
even if they didn't mean to.
No, yeah,
it's very clear that's what happened.
It's obvious that like it's like, okay, we're taking inspiration from, or we're using this as a model. But yeah, it's just it's very standard, and it's weird. It's simultaneously like this really, schematic thing, but also like completely disorganized and like messy.
Yeah.
And it just comes out with me not really liking much of anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
Want to get into Don Fries?
Yeah, let's get into Don Fries.
I've been kicked in the head by a horse a few times.
All right. 5 out of 10. It's okay. We didn't really talk about it. My favorite part visually is the ending when they're in that water. I feel like that's really dynamic. You know, I like the stuff in the city, but particularly the stuff they're doing with like camera movements and like, you know, stylized like colors and stuff. There's like a point when it kind of gets like desaturated right before they start fighting.
Yeah.
And you know, like I said earlier about shit looking like concept art, there's several shots that were obviously like, you know, drawn out, which is not a bad thing. Sometimes it's a bad thing. Here, I don't think it's a bad thing, but really, really wide and like composed shots of like things.
When he falls into the water and there's like a, you know, a trail of like bubbles following him down.
There's a part when it's like Ultraman on one side of the frame and that big dragon thing, which we also didn't talk about. That thing kind of sucks. But they're like on opposite sides of the frame and it looks really composed. I like that stuff a lot.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the stuff that's lacking during the exposition scene, which there's a lot of those. A lot of this movie is, you know, you just have to do this, or why didn't you do this?
Yeah. Which is like, it's weird. Not to keep talking about it, it's like they've got all this stuff going on, like just on the back burner. But once we sit down, like, we're not actually juggling those things in the scenes.
Yeah.
You know, it's always just like, well, we're just talking about one thing while we you know, go through, like, he's in his apartment and he's just going to be dealing with this baby. He's not going to be like, oh, I've got to go. Yeah, they'll mention the baseball, they'll mention his dad at the beginning or end of them, but it doesn't feel like these things are living together. Sorry.
5 out of 10.
Yeah. 5 out of 10. Yeah, that's how I feel. I mean, just neutral. I mean, I can't be that mad at it because obviously, like, it's like, I think a good bit of passion went into this. I feel that behind like the ideas that went into it for the story, for the dad and all this baseball and stuff. I think somebody had a lot of energy and a lot of passion and like a vision for what they wanted to do with this. I think it's like a good attempt, or solid attempt at westernizing this.
Yeah.
And like doing a kids movie about it, but
I definitely feel it definitely feels like it was made by people who actually like Ultraman.
For sure. Yeah, it feels
without being like a needlessly like fan servicey like, which I think there are several references, you know, with like character names and like things in the background, but it doesn't feel like they're forcing it to be.
They're not pandering or
everything
anything.
that it already has been.
Yeah. It Yeah, I have nothing against this. It's just like I see a lot of like interesting stuff about it, and I see all the passion, and it's like, oh man, it didn't work out quite as I think they wanted it to. Maybe the next two will.
Dude, they're gonna be so good.
It's gonna get really good. Watch One Piece, bro. Just after episode 837, you know. But yeah, I really have nothing. I'm not mad at all. Like
that's good to hear.
Yeah. I have nothing against it is all I'm trying to say, and I don't want to be. I feel a reluctance to be like negative about it because it's like, well, it's a baby movie.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not gonna.
I think we've been pretty good at articulating our thoughts. I don't think people are gonna take you as being
no. And
mad
it's
at it.
What's frustrating is it's like, yeah, it's a kids movie, so you like need to get like these like basic story elements like outlined. You know, you watch something like, and once again, it's kind of unfair to go back to like Pixar or whatever, but you watch something like The Incredibles, and you know, you watch them when you're older. And it's like you pick up on a lot that wasn't there when you were 7.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, oh man, this is like a whole subplot that I totally didn't understand just because I was like a tiny child. But for the most part, you get everything, the broad strokes. You
As a
understand.
child.
Yeah, you like understand like whatever, just like the basics of where everybody's coming from. And like what role they play in the story. And I feel like here that's not going to happen. And for the most part, kids are going to be not understanding what's going on. So that's why I don't feel so ashamed of like nitpicking story stuff, because it's like it all ends up as confusing. For me. Just imagine a 7-year-old child with double the mental capacity of me.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, it is, you know, you kind of have to grade on a curve, I guess, because it's intended for little kids. But, you know, whenever I start thinking that way, I'm like, you know, I could sit down and watch Ratatouille right now.
and
That's
have
a
a
kid's
grand old
movie.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. I could watch Wallace and Gromit, Curse of the Were-Rabbit.
The greatest movie ever made.
And if anybody came in the room, I'd say, shut up.
Yeah.
I'm watching Wallace and Gromit. I'm watching a kid's movie.
I do love a bit of Gorgonzola. Like you say it right as you're reciting the movie as it plays.
Jeez. But, you know, some kids' movies are great. Kids' movies, much like regular movies, can be great.
True.
You know, let's maybe go back a little bit and talk about I do not like the name Gigantron.
Yeah, that's really like it's like you improv'd that, you know?
It comes across as the very first thing that somebody came up with.
Yeah.
That's not like an iteration, or that's not like, you know, the better of two choices. Like, that is the single thing that they came up with. And it's also, you know, they still have, I think, fuck, I can't remember any of the fucking Ultraman monsters' names.
Well, you know, don't
But
embarrass
Gamora, I
yourself
think, is
by-
one of them.
Okay.
Gamora and fucking whatever. They have pre-existing Ultraman monsters
That are in
the movie,
Yeah.
and they make passing references to other ones. And it all comes together. Plus Ultraman, you know, Ultraman and those, it just sort of combines, and you kind of understand like you're in a certain world.
Yeah.
This sort of like vintage tinged Japanese world. And then you introduce something like Gigantron, and it's like, why the fuck is it called that? Like,
that sounds like something a teenager would come up with. It's like, and it has like no resemblance to like what an Ultraman monster would usually
Right,
be
it's-
called. So it's
yeah.
like totally out of place. And so, yeah, like what you're saying is like, it's totally weird to have that put right alongside other stuff. It would be one thing if they were like calling all of them shit like that, which would still be bad, but.
yeah, but they're like, you know, these are kaiju. They're not monsters.
Yeah, yeah. They're, like,
Gigantron
using
is
the
a
Japanese
monster.
word. Yeah.
You know, but whatever.
Your wife was like, "Is it a?" It makes it sound like a robot. It's like,
It
yeah, I don't
does,
think it's
yeah.
a robot.
Tron sounds like a robot, which it doesn't help when it turns into Mecha Gigantron at the end.
Yeah.
Plus, visually, it is really, really, really lame. It's
Yeah,
just
it's
a
pretty
dragon.
generic.
It
It's
is
just like a
just a
dragon.
dragon, which
Yeah.
Ultraman monsters, like, there's so much creativity going into those.
They had to get creative.
They did, and they were.
Yeah.
Like, they were really resourceful and creative, and so many of those designs have, like, ingrained themselves as, like, you know, just little... Like, if you watch Japanese movies, like, just regular Japanese movies, the odds are an Ultraman figure, like a figure of a monster, like Red King or something,
Yeah.
they'll, like, pop up in the background of somebody's room.
Yeah.
They're just part of the visual language of Japanese pop culture now. And they have a pretty solid identity, you know, what makes one of those look the way it does. And they've been like consistent as they've moved forward, and it's pretty easy to spot something, you know, even if you don't know exactly what it is, you can be like, that looks like something from 60s Japan. And then to put that right next to this very generic pink dragon that's just like got a beak and it roars, it's like same thing they're doing with the fucking Legendary movies,
Yeah. It's just like
introducing the most generic, you know.
it's crazy. And I know that you could probably like it'd be really easy to find people who are willing to throw original ideas in. So I don't know why you're doing that. You know, I can't imagine that's the best you can get from people, character designers or whatever, whomever,
To whomever it may concern.
Yes. Yeah, it's just I'm not sure. I don't know. Very bland.
You talked about the robot while we were watching it. The robot character.
Oh yeah, I totally forgot about that. Did that die?
It did die.
It's talking about like feelings and like it's giving like opinions
Yeah.
in ways that's really odd. It's because like sometimes it's like does not compute you know, and it's like supposed to be the, I guess like a hyperlogical foil to an emotional character.
Yes.
You know,
yeah.
but sometimes it's like it like confronts him at
Yeah.
one point. He's like, you need to like, I can't even remember exactly what it told him, but it's like telling him how he should like think about his family.
Yeah.
And it's like, why is this computer the delivery method for this?
Yeah.
Really odd.
I agree. It didn't stand out a whole lot to me the first time watching it, but it does. I understand what you mean.
Yeah.
It's trying to fulfill two roles, I think.
Yeah.
And then it dies, which is really strange. And I guess they're like, it's kind of cushioned by the fact that I think it's modeled after the mom. It's like got her voice, and then the mom turns out to be alive. You know, we find that out pretty late in the movie.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, I guess really, but it is that's another thing with the pacing of this movie is like, it feels like it's like backloaded with a bunch of shit. Like the dad gets blown up, you know, and put into like fucking stasis or whatever. And it's like, okay, already it feels a little bit late in the movie to do this.
Yeah.
You know, but whatever. And then his house gets blown up again, and presumably the dad dies, which we know he doesn't. But at the time, it's like you think the dad is dead, and then the robot dies, and then in the fight at the end, like the baby gets like hit with a missile, and it looks like the baby might be dead for a second, and it's like all of this feels weirdly like too late in the movie to have all of this happening at once. It's like, why is the character like losing so much at this point? Which I guess, you know, going against normal 3-act structure like regular beats isn't a terrible thing, but it just reads wrong to me.
I don't get the vibe that it's subverting or like trying to be unexpected. I get the vibe that maybe even cuts were made and this is how it ended up.
Yeah.
You know.
Really strange.
Yeah.
So this is the last episode of season 1. And I really had to pull out all the stops to commemorate this episode.
It's been a long road.
Getting from there to here.
Yes.
It's been a long time, but our
time is finally near. See my dreams come alive at last.
I will touch the sky.
But oh shit.
But they're not going to hold me down no more. No, they're not going to change my mind.
Because I've got faith.
Because I've got faith of the heart.
Yeah.
So that's a song that we like, sort of.
Okay.
Emotionally, this is what it's going to be like. So
Okay.
we've got a music video
Okay, cool.
put to this. This is sort of it's the story of the podcast, you know, put into a song.
Okay.
And I know people don't like AI a whole lot. I did use a little bit of AI to sort of help me get where I needed to go with this song, but the lyrics are
because it's a
me.
tool. It's like having a little co-pilot.
It is, yeah, and
You
it's
know.
very ethical the way that they source all of their stuff. But this is a fucking joke. So it's the story of our podcast, and I think it's a really sort of emotional tribute to send off season 1. So
Okay.
let's take a look.
Matthew Fields, he's a guy who loves anime.
Oh.
Collecting
wow.
Funko Pops, they brighten up his day. Scrolling through Reddit, where he spends many hours, finding funny memes and stories, growing his cool nerd powers. But there's something missing, a spark in his life. He wants to share his passion, cut through all the strife. An idea came to him one night in a flash. He'd start a podcast and shove it up his ass. Giant Monster BS, where the geeks unite, talking about kaijus in the pale moonlight. invited Grattan to join at age 18. With posters on the wall, Funko Pop in Matt's hand. Watching Godzilla movies made his brain expand. Each episode's a journey through lands of fantasies. From Godzilla Kong to Clinton conspiracies. He found his rhythm, found his voice and grace, bringing joy to listeners with a giant bearded smile on his face. Oh no! Giant Monster BS, where the geeks unite, talking about sick kaijus in the pale moonlight. Oh oh, Matthew Field's cool idea, heard from Korea to Tanzania. Late nights, early mornings, headed it away. Matthew's dedication, it grew day by day. He had millions of fans by episode 3. His Kaiju themed podcast made him so much money. Matthew's passion grew more intense. It got so bad that he pissed his pants. He wrote his ideas in his manifesto. He purchased a gun, embarked on a quest, though. Now Matthew's found his calling, thanks to his podcast streams. Smoking weed, sharing Fortnite memes. Giant Monster BS is more than just a name. A podcast that will live in infamy when Matthew plays his game. If Matthew could impart one lesson to his thousands of fans,
One lesson.
it would be as follows. It will help you make your plans. Oh oh, fake pen and cool wrench, Doritos can get you through about anything. But having a sick-ass podcast will make you feel like a king. That's the story of your favorite podcast. It will go on forever when the future is the past. It all started with a boy and a bottle of Soylent. Now he talks about monsters for the world's enjoyment. Good night, everyone.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure bringing this podcast to everyone. The story of the podcast is really a story about me.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to say I appreciate you making that.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me to make this podcast with you at the age of 18.
Well, you're welcome.
Yeah, it kind of brings a tear to your eye looking
Yeah, in
back
a way.
on it.
In a weird kind of way.
Yeah, in a weird sort of way.
Yeah.
Not just a way, but a sort of way.
A sort of way, not a kind of way. Perhaps a kind of way, but
Mayhaps.
mayhaps a sort of way. I was trying to remember which one I said last.
Right.
Yeah. It's been 3 years.
Yeah. Just get that wrong.
Yeah.
3 long years.
3 long years of doing this.
Yep.
Yeah. What else can we say?
What a movie to end this.
Yeah, it is
season on.
funny to end it. Yeah, on this one, the whole genre is in a diarrhea state. Currently, not really.
Minus
that's not
one
true.
is good.
Minus one was good, and it did well, and people were interested in it.
Mhm.
I wasn't crazy about it, but it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad that they couldn't be fucked to localize the special features.
Yeah. We're still
Yeah.
getting word on that.
They
but-
couldn't even be lazy enough to run it through fucking AI subtitles or something. It was good enough for James Cameron.
Yeah, get some
know?
AI on there.
Yeah, I mean, he said it looked great.
Yeah.
Looks great, guys.
Favorite movie we reviewed?
I mean, you can't beat King Kong Escapes.
I know it's coming. Yeah.
That one. I'm trying to think of like we talked about in -1.
All those years ago.
All those years ago. When we did Mechagodzilla 2, you know, being able to appreciate those, might not have done that without this. So kind of those. And then that really crazy one with guys on jetpacks.
Reptilian.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. I remember I felt really weird after that night.
Yeah.
I was just in a weird mood, It put me in a weird mood.
I understand that.
Strange. You used to be able to catch stuff like that on like late night sci-fi.
Yes.
And there's something about watching that on a streaming service that just changes things.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but the world feels a little more empty to me somehow. A little more cold. I can't.
You got to dig it up out of the ground and watch it yourself.
Yeah. You can't. I get maybe it's because you have more responsibility for it, and it's your choice instead of like, well, I just turned on the TV and there it was. Yeah, watching TV means something very different now. I feel like like it used to be
so fucking awesome.
Yeah, it used to be so fucking awesome. No, like oh, I was just watching TV. Used to mean like I just threw it on and like sat and watched. Like whatever came on, and it's I feel like scrolling or whatever is probably taken its place as like the passive like I'm doing nothing. Now it's like I'm watching TV and it's like I'm watching The Wire.
Right.
Or whatever. That's what that means.
I decided to watch
a
docuseries.
Yeah. I was watching, it's that.
So
sorry.
You've had to watch. No, you're fine. I don't mean to interrupt you,
No.
but I do want to ask you. You've watched a fair bit of movies for this. I feel like I've seen a lot of them before. I watched a lot of stuff for the first time too, but I feel like I've shown you a few like stuff like the Gamera trilogy
For sure.
or
the
the Gamera franchise in particular. Any of that stick out to you as being something that you wouldn't have otherwise watched?
For sure, the Gamera stuff. I think I was kind of saving the Gamera viewing for the podcast.
Yeah.
Once we started doing it, once I invented this podcast. It's a funny thing to say, invented it.
Yeah, when you took a swig of Soylent and looked at the Funko Pop and you said, I have an idea.
Yeah, I have an idea. Sorry. Keep forgetting the cameras are on that side.
Doesn't matter.
But maybe the Gamera stuff. I'm excited about is it Daimogen?
Yes.
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 I'm excited to watch those. Those look cool. I'm very tempted by the box set on your shelf.
I've wanted to crack it open for a while. We were going to originally end season 1 by doing that.
Yeah. But things don't always go as planned. No. Things don't always work out the way you want them to. So.
Those will be in season 3.
What a joke.
We're gonna watch those. Anything you're looking forward to in season 2? I know it's probably not. There's probably a lot of dread.
Yeah,
going into season 2, which is independent, low budget, giant monster movies. Is there anything you're intrigued about, or anything you're kind of looking forward to?
Not really. I'm kind of just gonna let whatever. I'm just gonna let it happen.
Okay.
I guess Robo Geisha, some of those I've heard like crazy whatever stuff about. Anything that's got any kind of like people are interested in it. I guess I'm sort of looking forward to those.
I think Big Man Japan will be a good one to talk about.
Yes, okay, I was trying to remember. Yes, that one I'm interested in. I've just heard that title a bunch of times. I know like a little bit about it. But yeah, mostly dread. What about you? What's your favorite? If you have to pick one off the top of your head.
Okay. I don't know
you
why.
You can't pick that. Sorry.
War of the Gargantuas is coming to mind. Now, I will. I will say off the bat that is not my favorite. That's not even close to one of my favorites. But I liked the episode, and it was a fun. That was a fun one to just watch and be like, "What the fuck?" Like,
yeah.
Because it's like firmly in that time period where you and I have both seen a million movies that look and sound like that.
Yeah.
With the same writer, director, production design, lighting, like everything looks very familiar, but just seeing something that's like, so fresh, I guess, to me and you, was really fun, and that lady singing the song sticks out. Like, to me, that's like one of the most iconic like monster movie scenes of all time.
Yeah.
Is that lady on that rooftop?
That is, yeah, it's like this nonsensical, like, decadence that all of those had, where it's like, yep, and we have a song. You're going to be doing that in the movie. And try to make it. Yeah, there's some, like, yeah, okay, so there's something to the, like, movies of that era where they had this, like, very industrious, like, just, like, assembly line approach to the movies, but not like so much that they like didn't give a fuck. It's just like, we're getting this one out, and like there's Western stuff that's kind of like that. Giallo stuff kind of has it, where it's like it's very much like in a genre, and it's just like, this is a movie and we're getting it out so that we can have a poster with this stuff on it, and not be lying. And there's obvious like greatness in that, in certain ones of those. That's the closest I would say that it comes. And there's just something really unique about like the Japanese like approach to just like cranking these monster movies out. Like the nonsense that comes out of it sometimes, of just like, get the movie out and we're doing this, and it's like nobody's, I mean, yeah, there's like artists involved and they consider themselves artists, but like nobody's really calling this art.
Yeah, I like it's almost like, a car shop or something, where it's like you have all of these people who are like experts in their field. Maybe a car shop's a terrible thing to compare it to, but the way I look at it, and the sort of appreciation I've grown for particularly like the Showa era monster stuff, is like the directors and the writers and like the special effects directors and the people making the costumes and the actors, like they were all very professional people.
Yeah.
And they were all like, their skills at those like particular crafts were like extremely refined. It's like, I feel like there's a pretty clear, it's similar to other people's, it's not too distinct, but there is a solid like style that like Ishiro Honda had.
Yeah.
And it's, a little rigid, but it's like,
it is the style.
Yeah, there's something about, how refined all of that is. And I think it's evident when people try to make like fan films or like low budget stuff today. And it's like, oh shit, we can't get our shit to look half as good as like the movies that people make fun of.
Yeah.
Like, all that shit, like War of the Gargantuas, those are ugly costumes. They don't look convincing at all.
Yeah. But they're not sad.
No, they're kind of good. They're fun to look at, and they're kind of expressive and just interesting to watch. And like, it's all being manipulated by like experts, expert special effects people and stuff. It's really weird. It's a blend of like, like you said, like, this is a fucking job. Like, we got to get this done. And like, you have to do it this way.
Yeah.
But
then like also just like insane like pop, just but this like out of that like rigid approach, this like these insane nonsense things like spiral up out of them because of certain fuck ups or shortcomings, or just like something didn't turn out.
A weird idea got through.
Yeah.
A weird idea made it all the way through.
And it's just like, that sort of just spirals out of this, and you really can't replicate it, I think it's sort of changed, but I think the Western idea of these movies, being sort of like, like B movies and like, or like midnight movies, they're just like oddball things. Like, oh, it's weird, guy in a suit. Like you hear like older people talk about these movies who aren't like into them. And that's sort of how they, the ones with guys in rubber suits. Yeah. And that's what they would see in it. And that's what they are in
their
pop
words
culture.
Don't match up to their mouths.
Yep. Yeah. That stuff. And, they have like, I don't know, I guess that definition or like perception of these movies has like made people forget about like how like refined everyone's skills were, and like obviously these didn't have the most integrity most of their time in their country of origin. But they were like slick. These are like slick, expensive productions.
Yeah.
Very professional. Yeah, for the most part, if you're talking about like Godzilla stuff.
There's stuff like Mothra that I think is really like, I think having the podcast as an excuse to watch that was really nice. I really like the original Mothra, and I remember we reviewed that. We reviewed like whatever shitty DVD copy was available at the time.
Yeah.
And I think I was like, I really wish we could get the original on Blu-ray. And since then, we have gotten it, and it's been nice to see that. I think public perception is changing of these movies, or kind of has already changed.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of like legitimate interest in these movies as like art. And I think, the further we get into like the age of digital filmmaking, I think people really yearn for like handcrafted stuff that these movies are just like steeped in.
Yeah, I mean that's what these all are, is like, this and like it's the feeling of like just these huge productions. It's like James Bond movies, like the older ones. It's because they're from a similar era, but you can feel like there's just these huge constructions of stuff. Yeah, that's what it is. Just like all this money and effort,
So I believe next season we will be covering the Calamari Wrestler. Episode 1. Have you heard of that one?
No.
Okay.
That's why it's funny. It's like, all right. Calamari Wrestler. Oh.
You might like it.
Maybe.
And
cut.
Yep.